Derby weekend across the West Midlands. It has all come to a head, all done and dusted, and this is where we're going to dissect the action over the next 60 minutes or so. It's the West Midlands Football Podcast here on this Sunday evening. Apologies, first of all, for the later arrival, one or two sort of technical issues, but we are right now streaming across Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter as part of local TV. I'm Ben Ellis, joined by Dom Phillips and some other guys here as well who's going to brag and do a lot of bragging in a minute, but
I'll be down the middle as I can. I've been there, Ben, so I know it hurts. But
do you know what? And newcomers will just put the dynamic here. I'm a Villa fan. Dom's a Villa fan. Gav's a Wolves fan. My beef that I'm going to get out, and I'm sure that Dom's going to get out at some point, has got nothing to do with Wolverhampton Wanderers. So we can kind of talk objectively for how that's going to play out over the next however long we do this. But we'll start with the winners, and because history is told by the winners, and they get to put their own sort of narrative in there. 2-1 victory for Wolverhampton Wanderers. Gav, I mean, I saw, and I suppose I was lulled into it, I saw in the build-up during the week quite a few Wolves fans who were a bit sort of trepidatious about the game on Saturday, and there was going to be no Neves, and there was going to be no Jimenez, and they're still smarting from what happened against Leeds prior to the international break. I mean, were you in that camp? Were you feeling that way too?
Yeah, I was, if I'm going to be honest with you, Ben. I didn't go into it with much hope. Surprised, first 20 minutes surprised me. I mean, talk about the Leeds game, that was a big defeat, really. That psychologically, that is a massive confidence knocker. But no, I mean, the first 20 minutes, we seemed to just get out the gate in fifth gear. I'm not too, we'll get onto the Villa in a bit, but I'm not too sure whether that bamboozled Villa or not. I don't think they were coming there expecting it. I certainly wasn't. We seemed to play how we've been playing more attackingly under Lars this season. That seemed to be the emphasis. Second half seemed to die down a lot. Villa were let back into the game, obviously. Had some decent chances, a couple of chances that should have been put away, most definitely. But no, it surprised me, really. I mean, I wasn't expecting that, I guess, from Wolves. I mean, they've done the old proverbial, which seems to be about the 8th and 9th time this season, where we seem to be having a comfortable scoreline, and then we found a way to take our foot off the gas. And credit to Villa in the second half, they really did step back up again in the game. But it wasn't what I was expecting. I mean, as you say, I was going there very, very cautiously yesterday. I think the referee was terrible. We seem to have this knack this season of, I don't know whether there's a little pull going on with the Premier League referees. The ones that are coming afterwards seem to try and one-up them. I've never seen a referee lose a game after half an hour in the Premier League, but that's a side issue, really. Get your two opinion on it as well, but I think the penalty was absolutely disgusting decision. I just don't get what the referee was looking at. But it was a much needed win after the Leeds knockback. There's always that little bit of sweetness on top when it's your local rival as well. But it's yeah, I'm happy, very happy. I mean, the Neves hole and the Jimenez hole were going to be big ones to fill yesterday. But Fabio Silva seemed to play very, very well. He was in the game. He was playing that pesty role where he wasn't giving Mings or Kuntz for any time on the ball. I can't believe I'm going to say it, but I actually think Dendoncker had half decent game as well. It seemed to peter off a little bit in the second half, but the first half he did what you'd want your midfielder to do, really, in those types of games. And no, it was a very good performance. As you say, it would have been a shame if we'd have thrown it away after the Leeds performance in the same fashion. But no, it was. I'm sure you're going to have a different view coming from a Villa viewpoint. But for me, from a Wolves viewpoint, I'm very, very happy.
That was the best I've seen Fabio Silva play in a Wolves shirt. I must admit, that seems to be, it seems to be the right role for him as he's sort of developing and maturing. You know that Jimenez isn't going to be around, obviously, forever. And he was always kind of in a shadow of Jimenez. And he's obviously seen this as an opportunity to sort of lead the line. I mean, he never gave Mings and Konsa a moment's peace. But as I say, we'll get on to Villa. I was waiting for you to make a comment on Dendoncker as well, having a half decent game. But the standout for me was Moutinho. I mean, it was an absolute masterclass.
Yeah, I think that we desperately needed that level of maturity in midfield yesterday. I mean, he's not the most glamorous player in the world. He's not somebody who's going to be doing spectacular skills in the middle of the park, but he gives you what he gives you, and that's a lot of calm, a lot of nous. I think he's the type of player that, like I said, you needed in that game. And I think he was one of 3 players yesterday who could have easily got man of the match. I mean, he did run the game really well. I mean, always cautious when you're going into these games, especially we talk about Dendoncker, but very cautious when you're playing these games. I know it sounds silly now, but looking at Villa's midfield and ours, and it was a midfield too, I was worried that it was going to get overrun in the middle of the park. But the both did a really good job yesterday, a really good job. Fabio Silva also as well. I mean, as you said, Ben, I think that's the best league game he's played for us by far. We saw glimpses of that in that Sheffield United game in the Cup where we won 3-0, where he played like that. Still not convinced he's going to be a 20-goal-a-season striker. I just don't think he's got that natural finishing ability. But there's always a place in a squad for somebody who can be, as I said earlier, playing that pest role, keeping the back four busy. There's always a place for that in a squad in the Premier League. So from someone whose Wolves career looked very dead to me in August, it's got new life now.
I should have been able to kind of put your mind at rest in the build-up to the game if you were ever concerned that you were going to be overrun and dominated by this Villa midfield. It wasn't going to happen because they don't know how to do it. And I'll bring Dom in sort of on this. It's the same story. It's the same story now, week in, week out, against a team who are higher in the table than Aston Villa, and they don't even lay a glove on them. There were 10 points between the two teams at kickoff yesterday, and bar the first couple of minutes where I was kind of lulled into a false sense of security. I think, well, we're pressing high up the field here. You know, as soon as Wolves got hold of the ball, broke, the 2 players slip over in the build-up to the goal. Konsa and Mings are both like Bambi on ice, and it's all complete panic stations before the ball finally sort of ends up in the net. You can't start a derby game at any level like that, let alone the Premier League.
No, it's just not serious. I mean, that first goal, it's just someone needs to get there and clear it. Someone needs to stamp authority and take control of proceedings, because it was chaos. The thing is that annoyed me that we just never have control in these kind of games. I know that it's a derby game and things change. I know the referee was awful and gave us a lot of decisions that we shouldn't have. Even with him on our side, we still didn't have any level of control on the game. I mean, you talked about the midfield. If we had 5 centre midfielders on the pitch, we wouldn't have controlled the game, because none of them can do it. We don't have players who, when the team are struggling, will step up and take responsibility and set the example. We have players who look for someone else to do it. We have players who play well when the team's playing well, when other players are playing well, and you aren't going to get any higher up the Premier League table if you have a squad and a team made up of players like that and a coach who is still figuring himself out in the Premier League and is still inexperienced. So it was really, really frustrating. And I think we were that bad for the majority of the game. I thought we were probably the better team, but Wolves definitely did look a lot more menacing going forward. Probably because they're just, a really good attacking team this season, but also because Villa are quite weak defensively under Gerrard. I think the whole team is just, you can just get, it feels like 3 passes and there's sometimes 3 on goal against us, which isn't right. But it's just we didn't really create too many clear-cut chances until too late in the game, when Watkins could have had 2 and then gets the penalty, which was a dubious decision of itself. So it's really annoying, as you say, Ben, that the same thing keeps happening every week, and this season just feels like a lull now. I don't know about you, I'd rather some of the younger kids have got a game instead of some of these players that we know will be leaving in the summer anyway.
I said it 2 weeks ago that the squad is made up of predominantly mid-table Premier League players. I mean, if somebody was to come out and say, "Well, Villa are really underachieving," I don't think they are. I think they're at their absolute maximum potential for this. They're halfway up the league with this level of player. As I said, it's not what Steven Gerrard came down here to do. They'd lost fire on the bounce under Dean Smith, and they'd bored felt they had to make a change, and that's fine. That's their prerogative. That's their decision. But if he'd got a result a game or two after that and sort of turned it round, they'd still be kind of where they are now under Dean Smith, and nobody would have a problem. Everything would be kind of hunky-dory. It is what it is. It's small steps. It's a bit of an improvement on last season. We've managed to comfortably retain our Premier League place despite losing Jack Grealish. You know, there are a lot of positives that could be taken from that dynamic, but the board made the decision mid-season that they were going to change it. Now, that's fine, and I'm on board with the change. I like what I hear coming out of Steven Gerrard. I think I've got a bit of a grasp on what he's trying to do. He's playing the whole diplomatic, protecting players kind of thing, where he comes out saying we can't play for 45 minutes, and that's on me. I've got to get that sorted. I don't think he's taking any responsibility for that behind closed doors. I think he's had a few of them up the wall. Particularly at half time. So you're not doing it, you're not doing it, you're not doing it. This isn't good enough. I came down here to get this club to the next level. I've got my plans. I know what I'm doing and I know where I'm going. And if you want to come with me, you've got to show me. You've got to show me that you want to be at this football club next season. And I said it here on 2 weeks ago, and I don't think anything has happened to change my mind on this. There are going to be some very high-profile names that leave this football club over the summer. And I don't think Steven Gerrard will. They'll either go or they won't be near the first team, because what will happen is Villa pay very high wages under these owners, and a lot of those players are very comfortable. Therein lies the problem sometimes. So you think, well, I'm getting 125 grand a week here at Villa. I've just put that figure out of the air, but let's say I'm getting 125 grand at Villa. Nobody realistically higher than Villa in the table is going to come in for me, so it's going to be another mid-table to lower half of the Premier League side. Then obviously not going to pay the wages that Villa are if I want to stay in the Premier League. So why would I move? There could be a problem. But I think Steven Gerrard's way of solving that will be you're training with the kids. Or I'm not having you. The money is the owner's money. It's not my concern. My concern is to get a winning team out on the field. And if you haven't got that grit, that steel, that determination, that winning mentality, you are not going to play for Aston Villa in the Premier League. That's what he's saying. That's what I believe he's saying. That's my interpretation of what he's saying. Whether that happens, of course, depends on the results at the early part of next season, because once he gets his way, and there's been nothing to suggest that he won't get his way, he seems very positive about talks that he's had with the recruitment side at Aston Villa about the plans that he's got. He's going to have to start getting results. Now, it's going to be more difficult to start getting those results early next season if you finish the season badly. You know, you want to carry some kind of momentum sort of into next season. But Dom, I don't know about you. I think he's made his mind up over a good 5 or 6 of them.
Yeah, I've been saying it on here as well. I said there's definitely, every time I've come on here, I've said last week there's a few players who have played their way out of Gerrard's team next season. And I mean, but there was one who I thought was quite done, and he got a start, Morgan Sanson, and I thought he was our best player. Well, maybe the second half I don't think he was quite as good, but I thought in the first half he was the one who in a derby was running around with urgency, winning the ball. There was one where the ball went out on the right hand side, and he sprinted over to get it, and he instantly threw it back in instead of looking around and waiting for Matty Cash to come and take it, or just, there's so many players in that team who, walk around with a bit of a sign. The attitude on the pitch is really bad sometimes. Like when we're 2-0 down or 1-0 down or whatever, it's just slow. The passing is so slow. We're so lethargic. And I know that Gerrard wants to play a possession style, but sometimes when you're letting teams get back into shape, it becomes harder to break them down. So, and that's not really level just much of a criticism of Gerrard. I just think some of the players, as I say, they don't have that next level mentality, that next level of quality as well that you need to be in Steven Gerrard's long-term plan for Aston Villa. At Rangers, it took him 3 years. It probably won't get quite as long at Villa if things don't continue to get better. But he needs his own players because these aren't his players.
I did notice that yesterday as well. Sorry, I was going to say a couple of things I did notice yesterday. You pointed out, Dom, that you had 4 central midfielders on the pitch. But for me, there was that. We spoke about it before, where that moulder player that Villa desperately need. There wasn't. Yeah. Seemed to be there was quality on there, I think, but there wasn't that beef. If that makes sense, there wasn't that driving force in the middle of the park that could help out. Because players like Jacob Ramsey could have done you a job in that game yesterday, but I don't feel like he got enough help. from the other midfielders. I think if he got a bit more freedom, he could have run the show a little bit more for you. I think as well, I think Coutinho's going to be a brilliant side, because I do think it's going to be made permanent from Villa, but do you think sometimes there's a lot of reliability put on him? I think a lot of it gets put on him to pull something out the hat a little bit.
Yesterday was the worst I've seen him.
You've got to earn the right to be able to play. And they didn't do it. And there's been enough times this season. They've lost as many games away from home in the Premier League as Norwich this season. I mean, that tells its own story. Now, the problem is, I mean, you can have Coutinho. Fine, there's nobody who wouldn't have a Coutinho in this. I think there's teams going for the top four that would have a Coutinho in their side. I don't think that's the issue. I mean, it doesn't help as well. I mean, it's great for the individuals, and the problem with the mentality and the attitudes kind of thing, and it's counterproductive, and I kind of hated myself for doing it, but I was annoyed in the international break at seeing Tyrone Mings and Ollie Watkins scoring for England, because I thought, oh, their egos are just going to go through the roof now. They scored goals against the Ivory Coast, and Tyrone Mings goes away with England, comes back thinking he's the reincarnation of Bobby Moore, right? And he's not. He really isn't, right? And this happens time and time and time again. Whether he's one of the ones that will go, that will be fascinating as far as that is concerned. I don't want to just make this about Villa though, Gab, because I mean we've just seen obviously the international break and the draw. We'll come on to the World Cup draw towards the end of this. It's going to be mentioned, of course, on the National Box to Box podcast on Tuesday, but we'll talk about it from a local perspective as well at the end of the show. Do you think if he keeps going the way he's going, Max Kilman's going to get on the plane? Ahead of Tyrone Mings, shall we say?
Well, why not? But I think the thing is with Southgate, Ben, that we've seen is the first game we played, the friendly that we played a back three and Cody started. For me, if he plays a back three in the World Cup, Cody's not going to start. I just don't think he's going to. I think he's going to bring Walker in like he did in 2018. I think with Mings, he likes that settled feel almost. I think he likes what players give him in the dressing room, even if they don't play every game for England. I think he likes that dressing room feel that they get with Mings, Cody. I think there's a couple of players like that. I mean, from what I read, I think there's a couple of elements where Kilman didn't get picked. I think he went to the game just before the international break, and I think it's probably his worst game he played for us so far this season, Kilman, but you can give him that because he's had a brilliant breakout season. I think there's other off-the-field issues as well because he's got Ukrainian family, so I think apparently there was a lot of time spent in his international break doing other things, but why not? I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? I think sometimes you've got to try. It's not even from a Wolves point of view. I think it's just from a fairness and just judging it on form point of view. Basing it on form, Harry Maguire shouldn't really be in the England squad either, but I think he's picking him because he's his goal. I think he's one of his goals, isn't he? But I would take him, yeah. I would definitely take him, but I probably would say no. Probably 30-70, it's yes to no at this point for me.
Well, the Harry Maguire issue, I'm sure, is something that's going to come up as well on the national podcast on Tuesday as well. But if it doesn't, the booing of Harry Maguire, why this is even a story, I don't know, that people are kind of sort of latching onto. And that, they're not booing specifically Harry Maguire. They're booing the decision to keep on picking Harry Maguire when his performances are not up to the level, certainly the level required for Manchester United. And if they're not up to the level of Manchester United, why should they be up to the level of England? And he keeps picking him. That's why Gareth Southgate's getting booed on that as much as Harry Maguire is. But okay, we'll get onto that. We'll get onto that on Tuesday. Looking ahead to what's next, it's Newcastle away on Friday night, I think, isn't it, Gav? It's a TV job for Wolves. Looking at the result, have Newcastle been drawn into a false sense of security and thinking everything's all hunky-dory now? They've took a proper pasting at Spurs today, and that's their third defeat on the bounce.
Well,
Are they
doesn't
going to start
take-
getting twitchy again?
It doesn't take too long to get dragged back into it, does it? I mean, it works both ways with Wolves. Who feel like you're out of it, and then you're back in it with the top 6. It works the other way in the table as well. I don't know, to be honest with you. It might be a psychological thing. You would say there are going to be 3 teams worse than them that are going to go down, but there's nothing to say that they're not going to go down at the same time. I mean, I think Brentford pulled out a rabbit out of the hat yesterday with that result at Stamford Bridge. But even they, the past couple of weeks, look like they may have been getting sucked back into it again. So it doesn't take too long. Performance earlier was flat, very flat. I think it was a case of, I think Spurs didn't wake up in the first half and were in first or second gear, and in the second half it just seemed like Newcastle couldn't handle it really. But no, I think this is what it's going to be like with Wolves going into the end of the season as well. I think there's going to be we're playing every game we're playing a team that's got something to play for now. Newcastle, as you say, definitely have, because I don't think they're going to want the season to peter out, are they? Even if it does look like they may stay up, I don't think Eddie Howe's going to let that happen. So I think it's going to be a hard game on Friday night. I think Newcastle are going to make it very difficult for us.
I think they will, but at the same time, if you are sort of you're sort of desperate for a result, I don't think Wolves is a team I'd want to see on my upcoming fixture list as well. I think they're very well drilled, and they know what it's about, and they play for Bruno Lage. I think that's been very apparent all season, and you're going to get. You're going to get a tough 90 minutes out of Wolverhampton Wanderers. So, as trepidatious as you might have felt going into the game on Saturday with Villa, Newcastle fans might feel that heading to St James's Park on Friday night. I don't know if we should even bother, Dom, talking about Saturday 5:30 Tottenham above Villa. We won't lay a glove on them.
No, no, we won't. There's nothing really to say about that. Yeah, I can't see us getting close to a team like Tottenham, because I mean, as Gav said, they didn't really get out of first or second gear in the first half today against Newcastle. But then when they turn it on, when they want to turn up, they can, and they just look ruthless in attack. Kulusevski's a brilliant player. Obviously alongside Son and Kane, that's a lethal front 3. The midfielder, Bentancur, our January target. I think if we'd have got him, we'd be playing a lot better football than we are now. Even though it is wider issue, someone like him who can pass the ball around midfield, he ticks the ball play really well for Spurs, and just keeps them going, initiates attacks. And their back 3 has been really solid as well. Matt Doherty's hit form. He scored today, so it's really not a good time to be playing Spurs. They really want to get that top 4, and it's a really good time to play in Villa because we look really, really poor at the moment. So I'm not feeling particularly optimistic or looking forward to the game very much, if I'm being honest. I'm just hoping to see some changes to the team.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what they do with that. I mean, we haven't talked about it yet, but probably Jacob Ramsey could do with coming out the firing line for a bit. I think he looks a bit of a spent force with the amount of games that he's been playing. Kind of consecutive, although it's been a really good breakout season for him. You mentioned Morgan Sanson. The important thing there is if you can keep him fit, you've got a player, but it doesn't seem to be doing the job. Leon Bailey, living off a 20-minute cameo against what has proved to be, even though it was early season, what has proved to be a desperately poor Everton side. So I think he probably will be one of the ones out the door, you'd think.
He could be. I mean, Gerrard doesn't really play with too many wingers anyway. I do think Bailey's one that they might keep myself, because I do think he has that next level of quality. I don't think that he's particularly shown that consistently. I do think that he struggled with injury though, and it's his first season here. Although I do think he'll be dropped for Saturday, because I thought he was really, really poor against Wolves. I think the play he's more likely to move on in that regard is probably Traore, alongside all of the players who got out on loan, like Trezeguet, El Ghazis and all that. But yeah, I'd like to see Morgan Sanson given a game. Marvelous Nakamba might be back. He played an hour for the under-23s a couple of nights ago, so he's been training for a couple of weeks. I think we need someone like that who can just break up play. He's not an amazing player, Nakamba, but he's effective at what he does, and we need that player sitting in midfield. And then whether he brings back Luiz, I don't know. I thought Buendia did well off the bench, so Callum Chambers, I think he'll be straight back into the team, because they need a new centre-back in that back two after the performance against Wolves. So hopefully it'll be a bit of a refreshed Villa 11 who, even if they lose, can play well, because performance is what matters more than results for me in a way, because I don't think we're going to get Europe. I don't think we're going to go down. We'll finish round and about where we are. I just want to enjoy watching the Villa play football, I think.
Yeah, losing Luca Digne as well was a blow again early in the game, having just come back from a hamstring injury. It's the West Midlands Football Podcast Sunday evening. It's where we have a look back over the weekend's action. It's a derby double. We're looking to the championship side of things now, and it was moved to Sunday, which we thought one of the two games might have been moved by the West Midlands Police. They suggested that the Blues West Brom game be moved to Sunday and played at 3:00, and television not allowed anywhere near it. And from the reports I've seen coming out of St Andrews today, we those who weren't there were the lucky ones that missed the game. We have no either Birmingham City or Wolverhampton, the West Brom representation here tonight, so we're going to have to be kind of as objective as possible. I've only seen sort of brief sort of YouTube highlights of the game. 1-0 win for Birmingham City. Lyle Taylor with the penalty, a rather audacious. Have anybody seen this penalty yet from Taylor? Okay.
Took about 15 steps before he took it, didn't he? And then in about a metre.
He walked up to the ball like he was going to stroke the winning putt in the Masters next weekend at Augusta. And
I know it sort of might be going off track a little bit. I thought that got banned. I genuinely thought that got banned about 3 or 4 seasons.
I think the run up, the stop, and the start. He didn't change his movement at all. It was the same. It was the walk up to making connection with the ball. That start, stop. Give the goalkeeper the eyes. Send him. I think that's gone now, which I'm kind of glad to see. So that was the one key incident in the game. Blues coming away with all 3 points. Anybody see the incident in the first half where West Brom should have had a penalty?
No,
I haven't.
No.
Oh, it's bad. This is. I don't know how. And we've talked about it on a national level, with where VAR light is going to come into it, potentially in the football league soon, where decisions like this can get reviewed by somebody sitting in the stand looking at an iPad as opposed to Stockley Park, and there's going to be less faff about it. I'm all in favour of that, to be quite honest. But ball comes into the box. Pedersen's hand is raised in the air, and he literally punches the ball away. And it's a clear handball in front of the Tilton end, and it's not given. And that's about as good as it got for West Brom. Really, they didn't have a shot on target in the 90 minutes. The only shot on target in the game was Taylor's penalty. In fact, so the game itself has followed a pattern that we've seen for consecutive games at St Andrews in the last month or so, where they were starting to build a bit of momentum and starting to look good. You had Taylor, you had Hernandez, Bakuna starting to come to the fore, starting to score a few goals with Blues, and that seems to have completely dried up now, and the quality really does seem to be lacking. And if West Brom, Dom, had any thoughts of making a late push for the playoffs, they would have had to have practically won every game for the rest of the season. So surely that's gone now.
Yeah, absolutely is. It's really disappointing for them. I saw after the game Steve Bruce said that's the worst game of football he's ever seen. And without being disrespectful to him, he's got a bit of a reputation for having managed a few of those games in his time.
Yeah, let's put that into some context.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I saw the replies on Twitter were like, no, this one was worse. No, this one was worse. No, this one was worse. That he had all managed in them as well. So yeah, it by all accounts an awful game. Just only one shot on target, and ultimately West Brom. I think Steve Bruce is going to feel really let down by his players, to be honest, because Valerian Ismail was not a popular figure there at the end of his time. But they've sacked him and gone from being consistently sort of near the top of the league and just starting to slip, and now they're just hidden in mid-table obscurity. And to go away to Blues, I know Blues aren't the easiest team to play away. They're a tough team, as you said. They've got some good players that you listed, but even they didn't have their best performance, and they managed to get a win against West Brom. So yeah, there's no chance they get near the playoffs, and even if they did, they wouldn't do much in it, I don't think. the team just looked quite tepid. There's some players there that I don't think believe in the club. I don't think there's some players that believe in the manager or believe in each other, to be honest. So I think West Brom fans will be feeling just really frustrated, really bored, and really disillusioned. And hopefully the summer can bring a bit of hope, but with their owners, you're never quite sure, I don't think.
Gav, any thoughts on that?
Ditto, really. I mean, I was annoyed when I found out it wasn't on the TV. Listening to the commentary, I didn't see the incident, but listening to the commentary, glad that it wasn't on the TV. If I'm going to be completely honest, I would be very, very mad if I was a West Brom fan leaving St Andrews today. I tell you, because this was their last chance. You said, Ben, this was like their last chance saloon today. They needed to win to keep on track. They had a slight slither of a chance of getting in the playoffs. That's, for me, that's gone today now. It's just annoying because I think you need... Look, if you go out and lose a game, even if you need to win it to keep on track, if you put in that work rate and that ethic and that just general looking like you want to win the game, you got that desire, the fans won't be annoyed. You know, but that's just how it is. But it sounded like a very dull... It could have gone to watch Sunday League game this morning. It would have been more entertaining, or you would have got more effort out of them. I think, as Dom said, I think there's some players there that don't buy into it, but at the same time, I think there's some players there that I just don't think are good enough. I think a few of them are Ishmael's players, but I just don't think they're good enough, even in the Championship. I don't think someone like Alex Mowatt's going to anchor in midfield for them and get them near the top of the table. Cole Bartley, it's about his 50th club now, isn't it, at Blues that he's been at? You know, it seems like these players have been there and done it, and I think they needed to try something different from what they had. I think Bruce is what he is. That's just going to be what he is for them. If it's coming off and you're getting results, it seems good, but when you're playing like this and you're losing games, it just looks really bad.
You say there's Valerian Ismail players in this team, Gav. There's Tony Pulis players in this team. That's
exactly.
how long that they've been. That's how long they've been there, and it hasn't been refreshed and it hasn't been changed. There's something I've learned about doing this gig over the last sort of few months, in that yes, we're very tribal and we're very loyal to our own teams on this patch, and it's been a Derby Day sort of weekend. But there's one element which, and I can't speak for other areas of the country. All what I know about is the West Midlands and where I'm from and the football that I've grown up watching. The one element that bides Villa, Blues, West Brom, Wolves, we'll bring Walsall into it as well in a bit. The one thing that bides us all as football fans is you cannot pull the wool over our eyes. That we know when our team are not doing it and not putting it in. And that's what we don't accept. You know, we like it when we win. We feel good about it. We have to take a lot of defeats along the road. It's a bumpy road being a fan of a West Midlands football club. That is absolutely for sure. But there are ways of losing. And if we see that there are players from any of our respected teams out there that are hiding, that are shirking, we will not stand for it. We will not put up with it. And you can say that if you're a Villa fan, you're a Blues fan, Albion fan, Wolves fan, doesn't matter. We spot it. We can all see it. And I've learned that doing that over this. I can tell when one of my players is hiding, and I'm sure there are plenty of Albion fans out there that have seen that today, and Blues fans today. That wasn't a great display from Blues at all in any way, shape, or form in that Derby game. So yeah, so when you see that, when you hear it, you know, you do kind of get sort of frustrated. It is the West Midlands Football Podcast. It's going to be a slightly shorter show because, you know, 4 of the teams involved have played each other, so we'll be kind of mixed in with the same conversations. But we're going to drop into League Two now. Did either of you hear Michael Flynn's post-match interview after Warsaw's defeat yesterday?
No, I didn't.
Right. That's not the same thing, but that's all I can offer.
Okay. Well, I've not got this verbatim. It's just what I heard on the radio yesterday at about 5:30 when he was interviewed after the game. We talked about it in the last few weeks. He's come in there. Walsall have definitely had a new manager bounce. with Michael Flynn. We're all agreed that it's a very it's a very positive appointment, and we think he's going to do a good job there. Now, if you think of what we talked about at the top of this show with Steven Gerrard and Aston Villa, Michael Flynn came out after a 2-0 defeat at home yesterday where Walsall were really, really poor. And he said, I know what's in that dressing room. I've had a look at them. I know what's there. And I'm going to have a lot of tough conversations with certain individuals who I don't think are doing the business, who are not going to be part of my plans. And I'm going to move heaven and earth with the help of my backroom staff to get rid of them. Those are the exact words, to get rid of them. And I heard him say that. And it's different, sort of the lower reaches of League Two compared to the Premier League. And I heard that and I kind of smiled and I thought, I'd have loved to have heard Steven Gerrard say that yesterday.
Yeah. Steven Gerrard thinking, isn't it?
Yeah, he's thinking it. I'm certainly thinking it. But I was like, Michael Flynn, how refreshing is that?
Yeah.
How refreshing is that? Because the point is, right, if you're in the lower reaches of League Two, if they decide you're not for me, contract cancelled, it's a good life as a professional footballer, whatever of the 92 Premier League and league clubs you play for. But if you're at that lower end of the market, there's not necessarily going to be clubs ringing your phone, knocking your door. You could literally be out of a job as a professional footballer if you don't do the business at a club like Walsall. And if Michael Flynn has to say what he said to kind of put the rod up a few of them, good luck to him. I hope he gets a reaction, Gav.
Well, like you said, I think that's exactly what you want to hear from a manager that's come in for a team that aren't, for the board, obviously don't think that they're hitting the heights that they should be in that league. He's been in there now. He's been in there a good chunk of weeks, and he's had a look at these players, and he knows. Like we spoke about it just about West Brom. We made the comment, if they're the business or not, and I think he probably knows now. I think he probably had half an idea after a couple of training sessions, but they just need it affirmed, don't they, in the head when they watch it in live action in a game. No, I would be happy if I was a Walsall fan hearing that. I think that's exactly what you need. I think in a manager in that football league, you need someone with a strong character and someone that's not going to be afraid to tell someone, look, you're not for me. You're going to have to overleave, or you're going to have to try with the kids, or you're going to have to try with the under-23s or under-20s or whatever capacity they have there. But he sounds like he's gone there and he's got ambition to get them out of that league and to get them promoted. And I think that is the price you've got to pay sometimes to have these awkward conversations with players, even if they're maybe ones that the fans do look and say, look, I just don't think you're going to fit into what I want to do here. You're just going to have to find somewhere else to go. So it sounds like there's going to be, speak about Villa, but it sounds like there's going to be 3 or 4 significant changes at Walsall as well in the playing team, obviously, doesn't it?
Yes, it
Next
certainly
season,
does. Yeah, it certainly does. 2-0 defeat to Leyton Orient, and there's only about 6 games left to go in the League Two season. In the West Midlands, we talk about the Premier League, we talk about the Championship and League One. The story is building all the time in the National League that Solihull Moors could be getting into the Football League. And what a story this would be if they were able to get their 3-1 victory yesterday. They're up to 4th in the table, the Moors, and I loved it. I live on the doorsteps of Solihull, and it's I'd be chuffed to bits, Dom, if they got into the Football League.
Yeah, same. I mean, I've watched the Moors many times. I had a season ticket a few years ago for a couple of years. I had a season ticket the year they went from the National League North up, and they won the league and went up to the National. And they've struggled, I think. They had that one spell into Tim Flows where they nearly got up, but it was sort of like Nuno. It was Wolves by the end, like that latter half, where they just sort of lost a bit of inspiration when they needed it most. And they've struggled with having a few managers that haven't really done the business, but then they've got in there largely, they've signed a load of new players, and for a while it wasn't really coming together. But as the season's got on, I think they've just got better and better and better. And what a time of the season to be playing in brilliant form. Massive 3-1 win over Maidenhead yesterday. Obviously, Andrew Dallas, you mentioned on a previous podcast, had that crazy scoring run. Ryan Barnett is in brilliant form. Kyle Hudlin, who's sort of jostling for places like Adam Rooney's playing really well as well. Jamie Osborne has been the club's best player for years and years, shaken off some injury woes, and now he's a mainstay in the 11 again. So it's great times to be a Moors fan, and I do think they could do it, and I'm really excited for that possibility.
Yeah, it was Maidenhead. I think I said Mansfield. So apologies for that. You're a season ticket holder.
I
You were?
was a few years ago. Yeah, I used to go most weeks, like every.
Okay.
Yeah.
You do know that is generally the accepted Birmingham City fan second team.
Yeah,
Solihull Moors.
I don't think we knew before we started. I started.
But it is.
it is.
is.
There's not many Villa fans there now.
No, Blues fans go to Solihull when in international breaks and stuff, and if Blues are away or if they're played on a Friday night or something, if they still want their Saturday football, they go to Solihull Moors.
Yeah, so there's always been a few Villa fans playing for them, so I always like to remind them of that.
Yeah, it's like the old Solihull Borough and Moor Green, who Ian Taylor used to play for, I think, back in the day, merged to form Solihull Moors. It would be a great story, wouldn't it, Gav?
Yeah, it'd be brilliant for Midlands football. I mean, I don't remember anything similar to this. The last time was about 10 years ago, where Tamworth seemed to be flirting with that top 6 in the National League, or what carnation it was at the time. No, it'd be brilliant. I mean, they've got players there that I think have got the experience to give them a lot going towards the line. You know, you spoke about Adam Rooney. I think he's a very good player to have in that league. I think he's someone that can really give them something. Yeah, as you say, Ben, I mean, you always like to see fresh blood, don't you? And he's in a Midlands form as well. It'd be brilliant. I mean, it'd just be interesting to see them up against teams that that have been Football League mainstays and have those fresh fixtures every week for them, wouldn't it? And brilliant for the community around Solihull as well, as you say, you resident living on the doorsteps of Solihull Moors as well. So it would really, really be a good story.
But the potential for growth as well. I mean, it's just off the Coventry Road, en route to the airport. A lot of people visiting the city. There's a real potential there, isn't there? I mean, that's where we were looking at building a national stadium. If we'd got, it was generally in that area, wasn't it, as part of a sort of a catchment area. So if a club like Solihull Moors can ultimately be the beneficiaries of that by getting themselves into the Football League, then as I say, that would be absolutely incredible. And good luck to them for the rest of the season. Fourth in the National League as we speak. It's not straightforward getting promotion to the Football League. There's a lot of hoops you have to jump through, as opposed to just where you finish in the league. I think the ground will be up to League 2 standard, though. I don't think there'd be any concerns there. But we'll have to see how it kind of plays out. So one last thing we're going to talk about international matters. I'm sure it will be gone into in more depth at the Box to Box podcast, which I'm going to be involved with on Tuesday. So, but the World Cup draw, which we did anybody watch the whole thing?
No, I'll just check BBC Sport at about 8 o'clock to see who we got. But no,
yes, on with it.
Song and dance, and envelopes being exchanged. I think that's the problem, isn't it? So, no.
How did Jermaine Genius get the gig?
His age.
Oh, he did well. I don't not knocking him, but I was just thinking, if you like penciling in, all like pundits and ex-England football personalities. Yeah, you're probably not going to give it to Paul Merson, are you? Quite frankly, let's be honest. But or Chris Kamara, but he did well. And presiding over the draw, it was interesting that they still have to draw out the obvious balls. So Qatar are going into Group A, but you've still got to pull a red ball that's got their name in it out of pot 1. And you think, yes, we know that. And so the next one that comes out, okay, that's England. They're going to go into Group B. So if you could pull out the red ball for B, so that'll put England into the number. Yes, we know this. We know what we can figure this out. Thank you, FIFA. And when all was said and done, it's going to be Iran, the USA, and whoever wins the European playoffs. So that's Wales, Scotland, or Ukraine. Now, we can talk till the cows come home about our feelings about November and whether or not it should be in Qatar in the first place, and that will be another debate for another day. And the legacy of Sepp Blatter's greed and corruption, of course, is where that has come to the fore. But now that it's set, or 3/4 set, shall we say, Iran and the USA, Dom, banana skins surely, but where England have come in the last two major tournaments, you wouldn't envision any problems by the time they come to the third game, whoever that's against.
Yeah, on paper, it's a very, very good group for us. The big teams are really distributed along the groups. There's no group of death at this World Cup, which is quite interesting. But in a way, I think having a big team in your group means you're going to have to bring a good game, less risk of complacency. But playing Iran and playing the USA, England have an awful record in international tournaments against the USA. They are just banana pills, as you say. You can, especially Wales and Scotland, the emotion that goes into games like that, if they were one of those teams, or even Ukraine, getting through, it's one of those things where if we want to stand any chance of doing well, we obviously have to dispatch of these teams. I'll remind you, we beat Ukraine this past Euros quite comfortably. So this level of team are teams that we should be able to cruise past. But in knockout tournament football, anything's possible, and always there's a bit of nervousness to it, I think.
Who do you think it'll be, Gav, in the fourth place?
I think whoever it's going to be, you're going to have that little... I think it's added that little bit of spice to it. I mean, you've got Wales, Scotland, you've got that rivalry there, Ukraine. They're just going to be everybody's second team in the tournament, aren't they, if they go through, with good reason. I don't really... I'll probably, if I had money in my hand and I had to put a bet on it, I'd probably say Wales, just because I think they've got that little bit more quality than the other two teams. But I think that's going to be the trickiest game out of all three of the fixtures in the group. I'm going to be honest, so whether one of those three are going to be.
Yeah, I think so. But that's in a way that's good. I mean, if you go back to the last World Cup, we were in the group with Belgium, but we've got Tunisia first and then Panama. Both England and Belgium had 6 points on the board going into that last game, so it didn't matter ultimately. So the pressure was off. I think we'll probably see a similar scenario here.
I think they should win the group. I mean, they should win the group, even though you're going to have that little bit of something with that third game. I think they should still win it. I would personally think they should be going to win the whole thing. I don't think there's any team really or any country that I would be frightened of playing at the moment. You've got teams that do have quality, but I think on the day England can give everybody a game in that who's involved in that tournament. I think we have got quality. It's just they're going to have to produce it. No more moments like in the Euro final where the seem to slow it down and let the team back in the game. I think you've got to go there and you've got to try and win every game of football.
Well, Dom, that's what's worrying me from England's point of view, in that when it came to the crunch, the pattern of the game of the Euro final turned out to be almost identical to the pattern of the game to the Croatia semi-final of the World Cup. Is that we've got ourselves into a winning position with an early goal. Do we stick or twist? We drop deeper and deeper and deeper. We can't get hold of the ball, and against that level of opposition, you're not going to hold out for 90 minutes, and that's what happened against Croatia. It's what happened against Italy. I thought it was a miracle we took it to penalties against Italy once it equalised, quite frankly, and then that was the end of that was kind of the end of the road. But you factor the heat that's going to be in Qatar as well. Even for the time of year, it's still going to be like over 30 degrees if you're playing in the daytime. I understand where Gav's coming from in that we should be going there looking to win it, but there's a lot of variables this time. I think there's a lot of things that could get in the way, and as I say, I think minimum quarterfinals for England. I'd be obviously disappointed that not winning the tournament, whichever round we departed at. But if we didn't get at least as far as quarterfinals, I think it would be an absolute failure.
Yeah, I think so. I agree with Gav, to be honest. I think England are either going to turn up and they're going to fall over in the groups, and it's going to be embarrassing and it's going to be funny to everyone who isn't English. But or we're going to turn up, and I think we could do that extra step. I do think the players are just closer than ever. I do think the younger players are getting better and better. I think Jude Bellingham's coming into this tournament a different player than he was at the Euros, and he was still special then, but now he's got an extra level of maturity playing in that England team. I think when Phil Foden gets to that level as well, and Jadon Sancho of just slotting in on the pitch as well as off it, that's when you've got so many more killer weapons that I think we'll have. And I think on paper we have the best squad. I think we've got a squad that's full of quality, full of youth, full of ambition, and we're desperate to win the World Cup because it's been so long. So, I mean, I'm not Southgate's biggest admirer, but I'm really looking forward to it. I think we've got a strong chance, and I do back him to give it a good showing. But as you say, Ben, anything earlier than quarterfinals is an abject failure.
I just hope we keep the ball in difficult situations. I just hope we keep the ball and we manage to get. It's different international football. You know, you can't play at that high Premier League tempo. If every game in the World Cup was played like a Premier League game, it'd be the greatest tournament the game has ever seen. But international football isn't like that. And rather than getting like the rest of the world to adapt to our way, we have to adapt to the international way. And we still fall a little bit short in being able to do that. I thought we'd cracked it. If you go back to the Denmark semi-final in extra time with 5 minutes to go, 2-1 up, England got hold of the ball and kept the ball for 5 minutes. I remember distinctly looking at the clock on the screen. I think we've kept the ball for 4 minutes here. And Denmark haven't been able to get, you know, and we're seeing this out. We're actually managing it. We've actually done it. We've actually cracked it, what we can't. And then we reverted to type in the final. So it's not in our nature as England to keep hold of the ball the way we do. And I think at the very, very highest level, when it really matters, you get found out. And that's my concern. But, you know, it'd be a great Christmas present for the nation because it'll finish just before Christmas if that was to happen. But there we go. On that, we say the Box to Box podcast will be available from about 8:00 on Tuesday evening across this platform, part of the West Midlands region on Birmingham TV. The other regions will come together, of course, and all being well, we will do this again, complaining about how Aston Villa have been useless against Spurs and trying to find out what Wolves have done as well at Newcastle. This time next Sunday, the West Midlands Football Podcast for Dom Phillips, for Gav Longthorne and myself, Ben Ellis. We will talk to you next week.